Hi, junk journaling friends. This is Lauren with Shabby Chic Sunday. We're going to play with 8 different ways to include pressed flowers in your journal or other crafts today. And the first thing that we're going to do is make a resin charm. So this is just a silicone circle mold that I'm going to first fill up with resin. Then you're going to take your pressed flowers and place them inside of the mold and then cover with another topping of resin. I'm going to put this under my UV light for about 15 seconds. Check to see that it's hard, and then you can just pop it out once it's cool. But depending on how much resin you use or how big your mold is, you may need 30 seconds total. So my resin is now completely solidified. It's rock hard, and there's already a hole inside. So I am going to go ahead and add a bulb pin so that I can dangle this as a charm in my journal. And I won't have to worry about, it bending or being ruined as it dangles off the side because it's rock hard. Okay, so the second way that you can use your pressed flowers is to make a wax seal. So I'm going to be melting just 4 little white wax beads. And if you don't have any wax melts, you can just use clear hot glue and it works the exact same. I'm going to be using this flat press. It does not have a design on it, so it's just going to melt my pressed flowers with my melted wax. And I'm just choosing this purple flower here. I'm going to push down with my stamp and wait for it to cool. Sometimes I'll use a china plate instead of the silicone mat because the cold plate helps it to cool quicker and it pops right off. But in this case, this one popped right off anyway, so either way works well. Look at how beautiful that is. And I'm just going to take my puncher here, put a little hole so I can then use this as a charm on a bookmark that we're going to make next. But you could also just glue this down as decoration in your journal, or you can put a little dab of glue on it, put it on a card, and then mail it off as some happy mail for a friend. Our next video are going to involve a laminator. So I just turned mine on to heat it up and set it to the side while I get my materials ready to make a bookmark. I'm going to be using a strip of pink paper by Shabby Art Boutique, and next to it is my laminator sheet. And these are just flowers from my yard that I have pressed inside of a book for a day or two. I decided I wanted to keep this really simple, so I'm just going to take this one little fern, I'll choose a Fae, and then a quote from the Forest Faes kit. I'm adding a dot of glue just to make sure that everything stays in place when I pick it up to put it inside of the laminator sheet. And I should mention, if you don't have a laminator, you can just glue everything down with Mod Podge or even seal it with a transparency sheet. I actually use a whole bunch of my old overhead projector transparencies in school, and they work really, really well. The machine also that I am using, my laminator, it's really inexpensive. I paid $19 for it on Amazon, and I couldn't be happier with how simple it is. So when you do insert your laminator sheet inside of the machine, you want to always ensure that you are feeding the closed or sealed end into the machine first, or it's going to bunch up. And then the last touch is just to add a little bow to the top so I can easily find it sticking out the top of my journal. And so I'm just adding this matching green slice of fabric. And I love how everything is safe and contained inside there. And then I'll add the little wax seal that we just made together as a little charm dangle to the top of the bookmark. So for our next project with the laminator, we're going to just make a simple tag. And I'm trying to figure out right now the placement I want with my pressed flowers. And I have to say, it is so funny because you would think that I have a garden of flowers to choose from to make these projects, but actually the opposite is actually reality. So I have weeds, and more weeds, and some wildflowers that are technically referred to as weeds, and that is all I'm using here. So even though they're weeds, they do look so beautiful. And as you can see, I just added a little moth from the elements portion of the digital kit by Shabby Art Boutique. And I'm just cutting off the excess transparency for my tag. Now I'm just going to punch a little hole at the top of my crocodile. And I'm going to rip a piece of fabric, so I can just have the scrap bow at the top of my tag. And you could also add a charm to the bow and have that dangle down on your tag if you would like. Mine's going to go into a journal though, and I don't have any room for anything else. Okay, what I'm looking at with you right now is also a tiny little weed, and I am absolutely amazed at how this came out when it was pressed. I mean, look at that. It looks like a sticker, doesn't it? This is just a weed that went through my laminator, and I sewed around the edges just for aesthetics. Another idea is after you put your pressed flower through the laminator, you can adhere it with a brad onto a tag so that you can actually write on the tag, and therefore it serves multi-purposes. You can then use it as a page topper, or like I did in this pocket with part of the front hanging over the side. Okay, idea number 7 is to sew the flower to a tag or another piece of paper, but only to sew the two sides. That way you can use it as a floating open pocket. So I sewed on the left-hand side and the bottom only, and then this gives me some room to tuck something either behind it or inside of it. And then you can have this be a floating pocket throughout your journal, and it can move as you grow within your journal. Our last technique is really nice for muting colors. You're going to want to grab a sheet of tissue or toilet paper. In this case, I'm using a single sheet of 2-ply tissue paper. You'll pull it open so that you only use one sheet. You're then very softly and gently going to adhere the tissue paper with your Mod Podge. I dab it to make sure that I don't pull any of the paper or even the pressed flower away, but after you have most of the glue on, you can start to paint with it. You'll wait a little bit for it to dry, and then you're going to cut off the excess tissue. And I have to say that this really does a beautiful job of muting the colors and adding a nice texture to the top. I wish I had done this with one of the dark purple or blue flowers to really show how helpful it can be, but of course I naturally went towards white since I don't like pops of color anyway. And so look at that, it does a really great job. It mutes the colors, it adds some mixed media texture to the top, and you have another element for your journal. So that is it. 8 really simple, easy ways that you can add paper flowers into your crafts. Thank you for crafting with me today, and I will see you all soon, friends.